right, welcome everybody. I am here today with Ron Morehead, best known for the Sierra Sounds capture. However, you are a very dynamic person. You have a lot more going on than just, hey, I caught some good audio back in the day. You're an author, you're a producer, a researcher, and an experiencer, which is great.
You're right. I've experienced them. I think that's the biggest deal. Wasn't really trying to so much in the 70s when this happened to us as a group of us. And we were, 8 miles in the wilderness and 8,400 feet in elevation, very imposing area to get to.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, you want to find out what's doing this stuff.
Right.
Originally, the Johnson, you want me to start on this thing? Just go right ahead.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Just
well, the way it began, the Johnson brothers, who were my seniors, and they've been going there since '58, and just because it's quite a sanctuary place, and it's just very pleasant, very beautiful up there, and it's imposing. I mean, it's very far back, so nobody else is around hardly ever. And
am I correct in that you got there by horseback?
Most of the time.
Okay.
No, I shouldn't say most of the time. What we did is we packed things in with horses and mules with supplies and even some barrels and a stove we reassembled, and then set up camp and left it there. That way, when we took supplies in on mules and horses, we could store some for the next trip and so keep our sleeping bags there. So when we wanted to walk in without the horses, which was, the Johnsons didn't have horses. It was just me and another guy had horses. So we were the ones mainly that did the packing, or we were the only ones that did the packing. So they came out with this story and told us, told the other hunters where I wasn't involved. I was just friends with them all, but I didn't hunt up there. And they said there's something up there. It's not a bear. It really was quite intimidating sounding. And if you hear the sounds, of course, they weren't recording the first time because they weren't expecting something like that.
Right.
They first heard this out because in a shelter. They first heard this outside. They thought it was probably a bear, a lot of bear up there. But the sounds didn't suggest a bear at all. These guys are avid hunters. I mean, they're really good. And they went out later when it all stopped. And they seen this huge track in the mud by the stove there, and I just, wow, there's something here. It's huge, big 5-foot footprint. So they came out and told the other guys, and the other guys thought, well, can't be. No one thought about Bigfoot,
Right.
And that. But this thing has a Bigfoot. So anyway, they all went back up, and the one guy, very religious guy, he just got kind of freaked out the first night it happened, and these things kept coming back. It's like their area. They were maybe trying to intimidate the hunters. I'm not sure, but they didn't. These guys are heavily armed. I mean, they don't go up there with just a pea shooter. They got their 44 magnums.
Yeah.
So they felt a little bit safe like that, and. But this guy, no matter what you had, it just froze him up, and he left a note the next morning, got out. Anyway, he got down the mountain. The guys never came out, so the wives were all worried, and I was friends with him. So he said, "I'm not going up by myself," and he took me, and I was glad to go. But that's what my first book's about, my chronicle. I get involved in this thing. So in 1971 is when it started for me. That's when I first went up, seeing the tracks, and they had gone back with tape recorders just in case this thing came back. So I was hearing sounds too. And I started going back as often as I could with someone to go with me, and walking sometimes riding horses. It's a lot easier to ride a horse as long as you I got a good trail horse up there. I had a few problems going off the edge with the horses. Not quite as good as they should be, maybe. And but anyway, that's how I got started. We started recording things, and it wasn't until '72 when Warren Johnson wrote a letter to Ivan Sanderson, who's a cryptozoologist, who's now passed away back east, and he thought it was probably a hoax, and so he sent it to a guy named Peter Byrne out in Oregon, who had a Bigfoot research center. Peter, who is now my good friend, he thought it was also a hoax. Right. And he sent it down to a guy in California, Alan Berry, who was working for a newspaper at the time. And Alan thought the same thing. Of course, we didn't know any of this when Alan came down to interview us and talked to us. And anyway, invited him in, took him in '72, and he started experiencing the same thing. And he set up a tape recorder, and he recorded the sounds like we was all doing. And he was taking it very professionally, still looking for who could be tricking us up there with nowhere like this, not leaving any sign.
Right.
So he is actually the one who fostered the studies at the University of Wyoming on these sounds to show that they were not manipulated, not messed around with. There was no 60 cycle hum, which would have showed pre-recording. They were shown to be authentic, and they were inside and outside the average human range. That was Professor Curl at the University of Wyoming who did that year-long study. And that was a big hurdle, but it wasn't good enough for academia to really
Of course not.
take hold and say, okay, even though this guy's written over 100 professional papers, he's undisputable science. He's a professor of electrical engineering. His job was to make sure there was no manipulation of the tapes, that they were authentic, and they were authentic. And you hear one stepping on the other with the conversation. You hear the rapid chattering, which we've recorded. And so that's all that happened. And that was, he writes about this in his book, Bigfoot, the COVID of the late man Slade, and what he went through trying to get professional opinions on this, someone that was unbiased and would laugh at him, because most people would laugh at the cartoonish name of Bigfoot back in those days, So anyway, he went to I.B. Tybal first, who was a guy who studied the Nixon Watergate tapes. If anybody on your listening audience remembers who Nixon was.
Right, yes, they do.
Yeah. And they said, it sounds, it's way too strong to be human made. So you need to get it studied by somebody. So he finally found Dr. Curlin, and that's how it got started. And without his fostering the sounds, I wouldn't probably be talking to you today.
Right.
We were up there. We weren't doing all this checking out what he was doing. Well, we was checking out, but I mean, weren't so critical, or I should say skeptical. We thought it was just some kind of a big ape out there that hadn't been identified, and we didn't realize other people weren't experiencing the same thing.
Right.
And then we decided, well, this is probably one of those Bigfoot things, because there's more than one. There was several coming around the camp, like a family of them. And very rarely getting a glimpse. These things are so elusive and so fast. It was just something we was always hoping for. We set up camera traps and all that, but they seemed to be a step ahead of us. We underestimated what we were dealing with at the time. We really did.
Think most do.
Yeah,
I think most do.
You don't know. You don't realize how intuitive they are and how really unique they are. That you've had the experience, and that's why I call myself an experiencer, because I'm not just an author or a researcher. I did all that after I experienced the stuff. And I produced a couple of CDs too with the sounds and narration and stuff like that. So that's how I got started. It wasn't until 2008 until a cryptolinguist, Scott Nelson, who retired as a cryptolinguist from Defense Language Institute of Foreign Languages in Monterey. He was in the Navy, and his job in the Navy was to decipher and see if this is a language, not this one, but anything that they turned him on to. And to see if there's any deception in the languages. He's perfect at that. And he's a two-time graduate of that school. So I vetted him pretty good, and he's on it. And he came out, interviewed Alan and myself to find the context of the sounds we were recording up there, and went back and actually studied them himself too. And said there is a language within this, a complex language. And that means something, because only humans are supposed to have the ability with the hyoid bone and the tongue and the nervous system goes into the brain, so I can look at you and talk through a sapient sound, which is my language, which means 10 or 12 words to make up a sentence. And that's what these things have. They have that ability, which makes it kind of interesting. It's outside the human range, yet it takes a human mechanism type to make the sounds.
Right.
And that's where we're at with it. And I've been doing this now for 50 years, and pretty much traveled the globe looking for enigmas and what's going on. And it's kind of got me into a whole other line of thinking. Alan Berry, who was the investigative reporter we took up there, had a master's degree in science. And he says, make sure you stay with science. Don't talk about the unusual, crazy stuff that goes on up here, or no one will want to talk to you, because academia make fun of that stuff. And so the science behind what I think we were experiencing is quantum science. Yes. And it's a real science. It's only 100 years old, but most people are trained in Newtonian physics in 1687. There's nothing wrong with that. We live in a three-dimensional environment. So really, we just have to realize that there's more dimensions going on. When you get into physics, you realize that there's at least 11 they've established mathematically. We live in only 3, so we only see within certain perimeters, certain frequencies. Everything is a frequency. According to science, everything is frequency, energy, and vibration. So if you can get on the right vibration of something, you can, well, I go into a whole other quantum theory there, not theory,
Right.
but what to say. Anyway, I'll keep rattling on, so you just break in with a question anytime you want to.
That's okay. I mean, you cover a lot of that in your blog as well as your book, which I just think that you state it perfectly, because my own opinion is that you have to be open-minded in this topic. In order to be a good researcher, a good investigator, you need to keep an open mind and have that. I always say use every tool in your toolbox. And if you have tunnel vision and you won't open your mind to anything besides flesh and blood, scientific evidence, you're doing yourself and this topic a disservice.
Perfectly
Because
said.
yeah, just like a detective, they get tunnel vision. They don't see who the real suspect is because they think it's this one. And you actually said something along those lines in your article, Yup, Flesh and Blood, which basically it's everything that I preach to my listeners is just keep an open mind. The woo side gets such a bad rap. And a lot of it is hard to wrap your mind around, but people are having these experiences. And just like Bigfoot, just like paranormal, ghost hunting, it's very hard to get physical evidence from these encounters, but people are having these encounters. And I think that we're not doing ourselves any favors or this topic that we're studying, trying to prove, if we shut it down and don't have an open mind about it.
Very true.
So I really liked what you said in here. No one is an expert in Bigfootology. Some have been researching longer than others and think they might know more. However, what we think we know and what we actually do know could be two different things. When acclimatizing to a new paradigm, it takes time, effort, and a willingness to explore the new as well as shed the old, which is perfectly said.
Thank you.
Perfectly said.
Well, people say, well, you're flesh and blood, or ape over here, or you're not, and you're in the woo camp. Well, to me, woo is quantum physics, because it's out there, the paranormal, the woo. It needs to be explained, and that's where people are missing it, because if you don't try to understand it, you will never get anywhere.
Right.
And that's why you say an open mind is critically important. But are they flesh and blood when they're in our environment? Yes, they live, poop, they eat, they procreate, they do what we do. It's just there's more to them than that, than just flesh and blood. And that's where I get into the human factor, because there's more to us than just flesh and blood.
Absolutely.
So if you get into Darwinism, there's nothing wrong with the troglodytes evolving the way they did, but something has manipulated, I think, the DNA of different species on this planet, and humans might be one of them. I'm just saying that we're here and we're unique because we're uniquely screwing up this earth.
That's the truth.
There's wars, there's all kinds of bad things going on with people. And I think the whole earth and the people in it need to raise their vibrational frequency, their personal vibrational frequency, to get into a lighter and a better environment for yourself.
I
You'll
absolutely
be healthier.
agree. There's a lot of toxicity going on, and not just in the soil. We're talking about in personalities and their vibrations. Absolutely.
Well, where I get into it is everything's a vibration, everything's energy at the most minute level. Energy can never die; it just transfers form, different forms. So I'm saying that possibly these things have the vocal mechanism, because it's very expansive. It's much more complex than what we have. If they can change their vibrational frequency to go out of our perception, which is limited, we're limited with just light's frequencies.
Right.
There's all kinds of things going on we don't see right now, even. And so I get to that there, and it's just it gets more involved and it's more interesting the more you look into it. And you're right. I think researchers who limit themselves with just flesh and blood are limiting their research.
Right.
I challenge them, because if you want to call me a woo-woo, I don't care. I'm just saying what happened to me and what happened to these other guys up there happened.
Yeah.
And you can challenge it as much as you want to and say, well, these guys backed their truck up to a dirt road and had a six-pack and start recording these things. But that's
Right.
not what happened. I mean, we
No.
were way back in there, and believe me, no one was messing with us. We were trying to figure this out,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of led me, like I say, into my quantum theory and
Right.
how these things may change their vibration.
Mm-hmm.
You hear trackways. I've interviewed people for years now, and trackways just stop.
Yes.
Well, I used to throw those out with baby water too, just like so many researchers do. Well, nothing. Helicopter pick them up. How'd that happen?
Right. Spaceship.
Well, it's called density, and I think if you get into once your matter is not there anymore, it's just your consciousness and your energy doesn't have any weight to it, so there's not going to leave a print anymore. I think that's how possibly these tracks can just stop. Until that happened to me, my daughter had a sighting that morning, and we found the trackway, very deep, very heavy, something really
Mm-hmm.
bipedal going there, and they just stopped. And I thought, well, wow, this is happening to me now. They can stop.
Right.
How does that happen? What's the rules behind that? Because there has to be a law or rule behind just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the quantum rules is what I think falls into play here. If they can change their frequency from matter into energy,
Mm-hmm.
that would change the density, and they would not leave a track anymore. And plus, you would see them probably maybe cloaking, which I've heard a lot of reports of, which is a pixelation look moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen pictures of that, actually, not just one, but 2 or 3 people.
There are there's
their
a
cat
lot of
starts,
data to support that.
Yeah, this woman who I know quite well, she's a teacher, and she's very strong up here, and not that, well, never mind. she was walking this trail with her cat. Her cat was out in front, but her cat was seeing something. She didn't see anything. So
Mm-hmm.
she just started filming it with her phone. And later she's looking at it, and you see this pixelation type thing moving through the weeds there.
Mm-hmm.
So an animal's perception and vision is sometimes better than humans. Even
Absolutely.
the camera scope picks up more than humans do. So it's important for people to realize they just don't see everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's just more going on. There could be more going on around you and me right now that we're not seeing because we are limited with lights of vibration.
Absolutely. I think, again, it's important for people to keep an open mind. It's just like the Bigfoot phenomena in itself. I always say it's not just that there was this sighting, and I believe Bigfoot's real because of this sighting. No, it's the sum of all of these sightings, all of these experiences that people are having, that causes you to think there's something to this. Well, now we have the woo factor. These people are having these experiences, and they're not just having it in the Pacific Northwest. They're not just having it in Florida. This is all over, that people are having these same experiences. And catching it on camera, because we always have a phone with us now. And there was a woman, she was in a deer stand, and she caught something like that. And it was just, she said it looked like cellophane. Like if she was filming cellophane, it was
that was
weird.
Lauren, I think, excuse me, I think that was right after my episode in the Missing 401, the Hunters.
Oh, right.
I had about a 15-minute
yes, it was. She was on that one.
Yeah, David Pilates. And that's exactly what I've heard so many times before, is people see that. Very credible people have seen that. And you got to wonder if these people aren't lying, they're not delusional. They're intelligent people. Did they see that, or what's really happening? So is there a rule behind that? Well, if your matter can change into frequency or energy, you might just be seeing that like in the plasma cloaking format. I think going through the 4th dimension is what I think. That's where people see ghosts too, in my opinion.
Yes.
Going to the 5th dimension where time as we perceive it doesn't exist. So,
well, see, I've had that experience with the paranormal, not with Bigfoot, but with the paranormal. I have had entities stand in front of me, and when I open my eyes, it looks like a clear cellophane balloon right in front of my face. And when I rear back, it disappears. Now, that obviously hasn't happened to me when I'm in the woods, but it has happened to me in my home. So, I mean, I just feel like there might be something to that, because we know that there are spirits, we know that there are ghosts, and I've had experiences with those. I'm an experiencer, so I can say that I have experienced that. I don't know what it was, but that explains it a little.
Energy. It's still their energy is there, and your consciousness doesn't die. I think that's part of your energy. It's your consciousness. Now, Darwinism doesn't explain that. I said I believe the troglodytes evolved. They did, but something happened to them DNA-wise to give us consciousness and give us who we are as humans too.
Right.
And
Our
that's my
souls.
opinion, and I think it's based on quite a few things. Really, I get into my book, Quantum Bigfoot.
Yes, that was one of the questions from Higher Oakless. He said, "How can you prove that Sasquatch is quantum?"
Well, you don't prove it; you suggest it. That's all I do.
I mean, that's
And
what we
it's
do with everything in this
sure.
field right now until we get a body.
Well, they're looking for a body, and you may
Mhm.
not get a body. These things are either one living underground or living in order they could do what I said. I don't think they're all the same. Number one, because if you believe in aliens, which I do, and I'm sure just about everybody listening here must believe there's something going on outside of what our
I would
human
I would hope
species.
they were open-minded enough to
Yeah, if
believe
you
that we are
believe
not
that,
alone.
they have advanced technology, and I've been pretty much around the world looking at stuff, and I blew in Bolivia and Peru. Blue. Bolivia and Peru showed me a lot. That really opened my mind. I was down there on a couple different research missions looking at these elongated skulls to see if maybe there was a bread trail leading up to the reported sagittal crest on these Bigfoot creatures.
Right.
And there is, by the way.
Okay.
But you see the megalithic structures down there and the way they were put up on this 13,000 foot mountain, 100 plus ton boulders, cut precisionally without any room. There's no mortar. They're just kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. And
Right.
you see that stuff for yourself all over upper Peru and in Bolivia, and you realize something with advanced technology has been on this planet. We're not the higher chain here like we think we are.
Right.
So I think they're here now. Even I think there's probably a species been visiting this planet for a long time, and they've manipulated different species. I think probably because their environment is not what this one is, and if they don't hybridize different species, including great apes, that's how they acclimate their species to this environment. That's what they're doing, I think. And,
right. That's an interesting theory, and I mean, scientifically, it makes sense.
Well, it does, because if you're from another planet, chances are the environment's not the same.
No. I
But,
mean,
what
War
are
of
they
the
doing?
Worlds. That's how we got rid of them.
Yeah, what are they doing here? This is a beautiful planet.
Yes.
We're lucky. I mean, this has got everything. It's just
Yes.
gorgeous, and it's got all these different species here and things. And what are we doing? We're setting off bombs, and killing other people, and that's not how you get things better.
No, we're not taking care of this planet very well at all.
They're waiting to take it over, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe so. I mean, it would serve us right, honestly, because we didn't take care of our home and what we had. So,
well, they're trying to help us, I think, in a way, but in another way, they're not allowed to really interfere. We have to graduate in our own. We have to experience what we've got in our life to make the best out of it and see if we can get to a higher plane.
I wanted to, since we're already down this path,
rabbit hole. They call it a rabbit hole, Laura.
Rabbit hole. I was being nice. I wanted to talk to you about orbs or strange lights, because that is ever more prevalent today. I have had my own experience with it, and I was upset because I did not want that to be a thing. However, it is, and people are having experiences with this. And so I wanted to talk to you about it. I think you have had strange experiences with moving lights, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is this more in the recent years, or has this happened before and you just now started speaking about it?
It happened the last time it happened with me in 2016 in our camp, actually, when we was up there. And we were actually in a little tent next to the shelter, which has been taken down, by the way, because it was just too much.
Okay.
And I've seen this elongated light going by. And actually, David Pilates reproduced that. His videographer did in that 411 Missing the Hunters.
Okay.
And did an excellent job. He's the only one I've ever really taken up there to document it and to check things out. So he interviews me around this stuff up there. And that was the last time I seen what I think was just a source of energy. Okay. You don't know what it's doing, but it's definitely got an intelligence behind it. It's just moving through the trees slowly. Watch it for several seconds, maybe up to a minute. And you don't know what it's about. You don't know what it's going to do. But that's not the first thing we've seen lights up there. It's just all kinds of strange things can happen. Orbs around, followed the Johnson brothers around their head several times. And during one, I wasn't up there when that happened, but there's no reason to disbelieve them. They're pretty serious guys. And you see that at the Joan Hauser's Montana vortex, orbs. We see orbs everywhere. What are they? They're energy, I think, just energy. And they're not a reflection off the camera. Some of them might be something, that's what the scientists are going, well, that's reflection light off something, Well, these things are out there. And to explain them is where I go, because I've had some people say they saw Bigfoot dematerialize and then they see an orb. Well, could that energy be that thing, be in an orb and just mill around them?
Smaller mass, easier to move.
The thought. Maybe. I saw what I saw up there was a UFO, I think, coming down from the sky, huge, but it was like a big blue moon. That sounds kind of strange.
No, I know
like
what you mean.
Song or something. But anyway, we lost it behind the trees. It was right when all this Bigfoot stuff was going on too. The guy witnessed that, and so there's strange things. There's other strange things happen up there. I talk about in my first book, Voices in the Wilderness, and I get into that and try to explain it now through the laws of quantum science.
Right, which I think is great that you're coming at this I don't want to say non-science, but that's what everyone calls it. All the flesh and blood researchers. This is not science. This is, but you're coming at it from a scientific way by studying it through the quantum physics.
Well, science is quantum physics is science.
It is, yes.
I explain all this in my book. If they just wouldn't prejudge it, an open mind.
Yes.
You said that earlier. I stress that all the time. You gotta have an open mind to get into physics like this. And I'm not a physicist, but I've been looking into it now for years and years because it explains a lot of things. I think a lot of experiences people are having. And I don't care if they want to put me in the woo-woo factor, the paranormal, something like that. I'm right in the same game with Einstein and Nicole, Tesla, and Schrodinger, and all those physicists. They realize, you can't base everything on Newtonian physics. It's
what you can see and touch and feel, you can't.
Yeah, all material, physical, measurable. That's not true. It's just not total everything. So that's where quantum physics was introduced by Max Planck, and he did that in the late 1800s. And he won the Nobel Prize for it in 1918. So the whole science is only a little over 100 years old, and you got these people criticizing the woo, but they don't understand what you're talking about. Right. They don't understand. They just got to get their head out of the sand, in my opinion.
They do. I mean, quantum physics, actually, it seems like it's been around about the same time period as psychology. And we've seen the amazing things that modern psychology can do. I mean, it solves crimes, it, can save lives. And that's something that was very much ridiculed. I'm a psych major. That was very much ridiculed. And look at it now. So, and those two things have been around about the same time. And if you look at how far we've come, Tesla, like you said, and everybody else, I mean, people need to give it a little bit more credit than they do instead of just shutting it down.
The truth comes out sooner or later. The truth prevails in my philosophy, no matter what. Somebody can be lying, but the truth will come out. And I've been standing by this for 50 years now, and it just... it's just coming out, I think, where people are realizing there's more going on with these things than what meets your three-dimensional eyes. And that's very important because
I agree.
Just programs like this gets it out more and gets people to at least to maybe pay attention to it a little bit.
Yes, I always tell people, my show is educational always, and I like to bring people on. My show is a platform for them to share their thoughts and feelings and experiences in a safe way. And I'm very blessed that my listeners are, even if they don't agree with the subject matter, they're very respectful and they show respect to the guest. And I'm very blessed in that. But I have had so many people since I started the new platform with video interview, and I started having more guests on like you, that they're telling their truth. Even if it's not accepted, they're telling their truth and what has happened to them. And I've had so many people come forward and just say, thank you, because I had this experience. I wanted to know more about this. It's just like what other shows have done where they brought witnesses on and it makes other people have had experiences feel less crazy because this happened to someone else. This is the same thing, but for the woo side, you know? So do you have any experiences that you have yet to tell about that you would like to share today that, just something that...
With involving these beings, or you want to hear about me ski boarding?
That would be fascinating too. But I mean, with these beings or just, with your research, things that you haven't, that had happened that you hadn't shared before because it wouldn't be accepted, or you just didn't know if you felt like it really happened?
I share it just about every chance I get, just
That's
because I don't care if people believe me. I'm at the age where I've been doing this so long. It happened when I started. I was 29 when it started with me and these other guys, and it just I don't care.
Yeah,
I say what is, and I say what I believe, and I
good.
say how the words led me, and the picture, the dots that I put together from my different travels into Nepal and into Siberia and into Peru and Bolivia and the Yucatan. Right. You put it all together with the stories and some of the things you see, and it kind of creates a picture for you. Connecting the dots is what I do.
Absolutely.
And I think I got a picture going. My Quantum Bigfoot book is going really, really well. So it's on Amazon. So yes, and it's just amazing how people are hooking into this and realizing. The subtitle of my book is bringing science and spirituality back together. Because to me, I was raised religiously, but I'm not religious anymore. But I'm spiritual, like you are, like we all are, like it or not. That energy goes somewhere. And if you're religious, you might say, well, you go to heaven when you die. Well, hopefully. But if you're a physicist, you just change forms. And that's what I think we're seeing with the orbs. And that's what's going to happen to each of us someday. We'll change forms. What happens after that, even Einstein wouldn't guess. It's just who really knows? We got all kinds of ideas, reincarnation or whatever. It depends on the level of your vibration, I think, is what's going to happen. And how well you've responded to the experiences that you've had on this earth. You got to respond to everything with love and compassion. Absolutely. If you respond like you're the one being attacked or something, everything's going to come down on you. Well, it's not going to help you at all. So my ideal is that just be the best person you can do to other people, and try not to kill anybody or set off a bomb, do stuff like that. Yes, and you'll be a happier person yourself. Yes. You'll be better for it because you won't get sick so much. And believe me, I've been sick in ages because I don't need to tap on wood or nothing. I'm just a healthy person because I think this way. And the people that do that I'm around also, they don't catch a cold every winter. I haven't had a cold in ages either. And I think it's because, we eat right. I believe in trying to clean up the pineal gland, which is inside our head, the third eye, and decalcifying it. We've calcified it with our food. Right. And once you can open that up, it's a receptor, I think, to the other consciousness that we're all part of. And once you can do that, it will lead you into what's right. And the biggest thing, I think,
completely agree.
Getting your heart and your brain in coherence and making sure they're on the right frequency, vibrating with each other. So when you feel something, they call it a gut feeling. It's your heart getting off this energy that relates something to your brain. Okay, wow, so-and-so's over here. I better go help. Oh, wait, there's a couple $100,000 sitting over here. I can go that way. But that's not what your heart's saying. Right. So you got to do what your heart's saying, and absolutely, and learn how to respond to that. That's what's going on, because it's probably messages you're receiving from the I don't want to say cosmos, but just from the
universe,
collective energy that we're all part of, and we've separated ourselves from that, unfortunately. But I think we get back to it. That's how telepathy works. That's how I think how people can. I think these things can do that too, but they're a little more advanced than what people want to give them credit for. And I really believe that.
That's definitely true. I think that people think they're just dumb animals, and I always try to tell people, to be as elusive as they are. they have to be highly sentient. You know,
I don't know if
they're highly intelligent.
yeah, they are.
No, I agree with everything you said. I have experienced that as well. I've been changing a lot of my life in the last year, especially since COVID, and I haven't been sick since I started changing and getting back into a more positive mindset, more positive,
Perfect. Good.
vibes and everything. So, and I've been trying to apply that on my show as well, just make it. I had somebody tell me, she said, your show is going to be a nirvana for people because there's no bad vibes. You don't trash talk, you don't judge anybody. She said it's a
Hmm.
place where people can come to get away from the drama and away from judgment and just learn. And so I've tried to make this show that platform. um, and I always end the show with, stay safe, be kind, and I'll see y'all next time, because I genuinely want people, especially in this day and age, I want people to be kind. And every day when I send my son off to school, it's make good choices and be kind. Find an opportunity to be kind to somebody. And I mean, that's so important. And I want my kids to be raised that way because, man, we all need to show some love to our fellow humans, even if they don't
So
deserve
true.
it.
That's true. Well, that's what makes us advance in our vibrational frequency is
Mhm.
it's by having compassion for other people.
Yes.
If you get really ticked off because some old person won't move when the light's green, and you start honking,
Yeah.
that's not compassion. That's
No.
pissed off. So,
And honestly, it
but
doesn't affect them at all. All it does is ruin your day.
well, so they double their medication that day. I don't know, but thing is, I have compassion for them now because I are one.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, I did have a few other questions about about your recordings that I wanted to cover real quick. So this one's from my partner Matt Knapp, and he said, what factors contributed to you guys being so fortunate to capture the audio and interactions that you did all those years ago? And what could modern day researchers do to increase their odds of achieving that sort of interaction?
Well, we weren't looking for them. They came to our camp,
Mm-hmm.
and they were coming around our camp at dusk. So um, we were just in the right place doing that. And we were in a really remote area of the wilderness, and I think that was their habitat also.
Right.
And so I think they found us maybe curious. The sounds we recorded to start off with were very aggressive. I think maybe they may have been territorial. I don't know.
Right.
But we didn't know if they were arguing out there amongst themselves to see who's going to break in the shelter and get shot or eat us or carry us away in a sleeping bag or something. You don't know. You're dealing with some kind of what at those days you think some kind of a huge monster. They're a lot
Mm-hmm.
bigger than we are. They're obviously much, much stronger. I mean, we got some limbs that were just twisted off like that big around up there. And
Right.
they're green, and you don't do that with no human that I know of can do that. These things are strong. I have a list of do's and don'ts that I have in that book, The Quantum Bigfoot, and there's a whole list of them because it's sometimes what you don't do is more important than what you do
Right.
if you're looking for an encounter, or looking for this. And again, I gotta say they're not all the same in my opinion. Like there's some that are not so good, and some that are want a friend and want to help.
That's true.
I think we happened to get lucky up there. They knew we weren't shooting at them. We kind of felt like they weren't going to eat us then, so we just started getting a little more comfortable with going up there and exciting really to see
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen if it happens. It happened every time, but if they were in the area or if they decided to want to mess with you, they would be there, and they have to make the first move. You can't make it happen. You got to
Right.
just be. We were all sober, very sober camp. No drugs, no alcohol. It just was really, uh, well, it was a very serious camp. It was hunting,
Mm-hmm.
but we did have fun. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Uh, so what to do and what not to do is a whole list of things. And the biggest thing is you hear the sound of silence. These things
Mm-hmm.
might be around, but you go
Yes.
to a place and you set up camp and you don't change things. Go to a place where you think is a Bigfoot hotspot, which there are those where people have been seeing these things more than others. And you go there, try to get away from anybody. Make sure you're off the beaten trail, way away. There's got to be water someplace close by too.
Agreed.
Um, that's what I think. And again, some people want to blast my sounds when they get out there. And
Yeah.
I had one guy say he had one charge him when he did that. So I don't really recommend that because we know the sounds we recorded have a complex language in them.
Right.
We
And we
just
don't know what
that,
they're saying.
we don't know what they're saying. And I tell them, what if they're looking for a mate? You don't want to do that.
Right. No. That's the truth. I mean, that could end very badly for you guys when they come up.
I'm not sure all of them have the ability to talk like ours did, but what we recorded up there and what we have is very similar to what Albert Ostman reported in Toba Inlet in 1924 to John Green's book, The Apes Among Us, I think it is. And he said they were chattering amongst themselves. Supposedly he was kept for 6 days with 4 of them and carried off and kept there. He didn't know what he was being kept there for. He didn't know what they were saying or what they were thinking, but they were guarding him to keep him from leaving. Finally, he got this opportunity to leave, and he did. But he said they were chattering amongst themselves. And I've had a lot of people chime in and say, well, I've heard those sounds. They call it the samurai cry. You know, that's the night I got to see one finally in 74 when these things were there. And there were 3 of them, we think, adolescent and a mother down below our shelter. And then behind us, there was the big male. He's the one that made the samurai cry, and it's called Samurai Cry. Matt Moneymaker coined that in 1995, I think, just before he started to be a FRO. And he comes streaking down through the trees and to where the other 2 were, I think. And you hear the other 2 chattering too, but you hear a small voice. And it sounds like a little one. And I got that recorded that night. So that's in the sound bites that come with the book. There's sound bites available in the Voices of Wilderness book, and you can hear. I think I put 24 sound bites in there. So when I get to the context of what I'm talking about, you can hear the sound that I'm talking about. That's kind of fun.
Yeah,
but you also hear the raps and the pounding and the whooping calls and stuff like that, because they toy with you on those levels first. And you just, I tell people, just ignore them. You know, do what you're doing. Let them think they don't have your attention. Then start doing some other things.
They'll ramp it up.
As it starts off wood clapping or something, you know, rock clacking, or then you'll hear the whoops back and forth for a couple of them. And but if you still don't do anything, then they may start chattering amongst themselves, and that's what happened with us. Again, some of them just yell and scream. I'm not sure they all have the same attributes, because I do believe the aliens have put themselves into the genome of different species on this planet, and different ones have been experimenting around with the primates, I think. So some of them may be doing one thing where it may be aggressive. Of course, there's another theory out there that maybe the government is trying to create those things. You know,
maybe so. We don't know.
For a war machine above all.
I mean,
that,
I think it's just oddly interesting that how a lot of people get flack for the government cover up aspect of Bigfoot, but I truly believe in it. I really do. I mean, I already have a plan in place if I ever find a body or anything like that. Like, I have a plan in place because I don't trust the government. I don't trust them not to swoop in and get that body. So
they would in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
probably have on several occasions.
I truly believe that they have. I've heard encounters of them doing it. So I do know that that has happened. I wanted to ask, you got me thinking whenever you were talking about hearing the chatter and everything. What are your thoughts on infrasound, and have you ever experienced that?
I may have. Warren Johnson and myself, we was hearing one of these things mouthing off out there, and we thought, it was getting kind of bold then because we was feeling a little safe. If we jump out this doorway, which is just a log between 2 trees like this, and that's our doorway. We jump out of that real quick and go up there. We'll see it run off the bright moonlit night. So we jump out of there, and we start slowly walking up towards this tree, which is only maybe 30, 40 feet away. And at the same time, he and I just got stopped, and I related to what a force field might be like. You don't see anything, you just can't go forward.
Yes.
And you would go backwards, and we weren't talking to each other, and we weren't afraid at that time. So we just wanted to see one, and we had to go back. We couldn't go forward. And he said, I don't know about you, but I can't move. And I said, I can't move it forward either. So we turned around and went back. As soon as we got back in, things started chattering again, got you guys. I brought this up to a scientist, a wildlife biologist, actually. He says, we just don't want to hear about your fear. Science don't want to hear about you. I said, we weren't afraid. it wasn't fear. So what's
It
your
wasn't
sign?
fear,
Tell me
right?
what it was. And he said, well, is it the infrasound or pheromones? He said, and at the time we realized pheromones only work within the same species. So it was probably infrasound, which has been known for years. Big animals use it
Yes.
to, infrasound. But we don't hear it. We just feel it.
Yes.
So it might have been that. And I still think it probably was that. Pheromones, now that I think there may be a human component to these things, they could have been pheromones too, but I still stick with infrasound, what caused it. It happened to me one other time in the woods up there, and just all of a sudden, you just get froze. You're walking by myself. I wasn't thinking about the Bigfoots, and all of a sudden, the hair starts standing up on my head.
Mm-hmm.
I started looking around, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And nothing, I couldn't see anything. But that doesn't mean there wasn't anything there. It just means maybe something was making infrasound and caused me to feel that way.
I've felt it quite a few times. A lot of people would probably say it's just a basic fear instinct. Your body's telling you something's there, even if you can't see it or hear it. But I've experienced it, and people very close to me have experienced it. And it's something physical. It's not
It
mental.
affects you. Yeah,
It's
it does affect you,
physical.
Lauren. It's
Yeah.
definitely it's a sound, it's a frequency.
Yeah,
Get back
absolutely.
into frequency again.
Yeah.
But it's a frequency we don't hear with our ears, but it definitely
Yes.
goes into us.
Yes.
And it affects you.
I will say that Doug Hychek is working on studying infrasound, because he finally recorded, and I have another friend who has recorded what they think is infrasound. And
good.
He finally isolated the frequency and got it on recording. And so it's so low that normal recorders aren't going to pick it up.
Right.
But the recorder he had and the recorder that my friend had, they picked it up.
It takes a special recorder to pick that up.
Absolutely. The one that Doug had was a very expensive recorder, and it picked it up. The one that my friend had is very expensive now, but when he bought it, it was a very cheap recorder. It was an older recorder, older model. So it seems like whatever they did with the recorders, they upgraded some piece of it, and now it doesn't pick it up. But his recorder was an older model, and he said he did pick it up. And it's from what Doug was telling me, it's almost like a heartbeat noise. It's like a whoop, 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 whoop. I mean, and it's coming at you in waves, just like a frequency.
Cool.
So
yeah, I know Doug
very
pretty well.
interesting.
He's an interesting guy.
He's doing big things in the scientific aspect for Bigfoot.
Yeah,
so.
We had a good talk. He and I spent some time together. And he picked me up at the airport when I did a conference in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
No, somewhere else.
He's a nice guy. He's very dedicated to this. But the infrasound, to me, that's my personal passion, is the infrasound, because it's happened to me so much. And so I was just wondering if y'all had felt anything that night when you got the recordings, or
no, it just came when it wanted to.
Yeah. yeah. That's about what happens every time.
It wasn't just one night. We were recording a lot up there. We had hours and hours of stuff all of us do. And Warren Johnson's passed away, Al Berry's passed away, and maybe Lewis's. I'm not sure about Lewis Johnson, but we all had corroborating sounds. And it's interesting that I've been in this so long, and none of the other guys want to get out there because they still think it's a butt of jokes. Right. But Bill McDowell, who I talk with frequently, he's my packing buddy. We had the horses and mules together, and he's a good guy. But I said, how come you don't talk about it? He said, it's hard enough to get someone to believe that there's a Bigfoot out there, much less all the strange things that went on too.
Yes. Yeah,
so I don't even get into it because. And I don't care. I talk about the strange stuff,
I mean, because like I said, we're doing a discredit if we don't talk about every aspect of it and see how that comes into play. I've gone through a transformation on that. It felt like you were trying to solve one mystery with another mystery and all of that. But I feel like being open-minded and valuing these experiences, they're all puzzle pieces, and you can't just use the corner pieces and not have any center pieces. You have to use all your puzzle pieces to solve this. Yeah.
I usually put the edges together first.
I do too. And I feel like that's the scientific part, is we look for tracks, we record our vocals, we look for DNA, all of that. That's our corner pieces. The inside piece, they're never easy. They're never easy, and you've got to be dedicated and open-minded, you know?
Some of
So
these people are so close-minded, they can't figure out where the last piece goes.
exactly. And I mean, it's in the Bigfoot community, the Bigfoot community is an eat your own community. You know, I don't post evidence out there. I have evidence. I don't post it because you'll get torn to shreds. And so the Bigfoot community does itself a disservice by being that way. Um, and then you have, you know, your hoaxers and all of that. And so it's really hard to put yourself out there and be open-minded like that, but it's worth it. Like you to be a good researcher, a good investigator, you need to be open-minded. Use all your tools in your toolbox.
So true.
So true. Have you ever had any other researchers send you recordings similar to the infamous Sierra sounds? That one's from Jamie.
We've had some close, but none of them with the quality that we captured up there. We
Okay.
were just very fortunate because they were very close to our shelter. We had a microphone sticking through the deadfall that we used for the walls, and
Right.
that's how we were recording at the time. And we've had people say, you know, they've heard it, but they haven't recorded it. And I encourage people, if they have something that has what we call a morphine stream of words, in other words, chatter,
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear that.
Absolutely.
And send it to me, and I'll run it by Scott Nelson, the cryptolinguist, because he'll determine if it has a language and if it is a morphine stream of words with a sapient language in it. And that's what's important to us. He's a language guy. Then you got another guy, I'm a good friend of it, Dave Ellis. He's on the Olympic project here in Washington, as I am. And they just did a filming here this last week up there. And he actually records the sound frequency where it is. Even though it may sound like a wolf howling, here's a wolf. And if it sounds like a wolf, but it'll be a different place.
Yes.
And he's got a whole library of different sounds like that. So if it's a scream or a yell, something like that, that's not what we want to hear. We're looking for corroborative language. And Scott Nelson, I think, has got one or two, but not long enough, not big enough to really go into it like ours are. We've got, I guess, and who knew? I didn't know this 50 years ago at all. Never dawned on me that these sounds would become what they become today and world known. Really, I've been I spoke at the Darwin Museum in Moscow a few years back, and that's when they took me into Siberia, me and a couple professors, and had that trip. And it's just a fun. I've had a lot of fun with this. It's exciting fun too. It's like you're on the edge of something big, you know. And I think we are. I think as humans, sometimes we put ourselves in this bubble, 80-year-old bubble or something that we think we're going to be in 100 years, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We don't realize how many eons have gone by past and how much is really what there really is.
That's true.
There's so much more than what meets our eyes and what meets most of our brains. You know, there's just a lot going on. More and more being discovered every day too.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah.
Mankind is very cocky. We think we are the biggest, baddest, and the only thing out there, you know?
So bullshit.
It is. It really is. You know, again, Bigfoot research aside, humankind is doing itself a disservice if we think that we are the only thing out there or we've discovered all there is to know about this planet. No, we sure have not.
Well, I think it was 1977 when they discovered a plesiosaurus, what they thought had been in the ocean, Japanese trawler. And that was thought to be extinct for 1 million years. You know, and the common one floating to the top. And just things like that happen. And then you find the Tatashades tribe, you know, it lost a tribe. And all of a sudden there's a bunch of people that they didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
You know, we're discovering things all the time.
Right.
And it's just important to stay on top of it and realize that well, I have a saying, when you're green, you grow, and when you're ripe, you rot. So we just stay green and keep growing with it and learning more. I don't know everything. I'm learning more and more as I go, and more from people too. Again, I don't discount the Native American mythologies at all. They say they live in two worlds. Well, what does that mean? They live in our world and then they go to something else. They claim that they live in trees, they energize in trees. And I think, I get to thinking, well, how's that? And I look and think, I've had so many reports of these things being seen where they're clear cutting or where they're cutting timber. And I think it really disturbs them. Yes. That's my opinion anyway.
No, I have a friend, she studies shamanism, and she has told me that whenever the mentor that is guiding her through her shamanism, whenever they go on their spiritual journeys, they go down towards the roots of the tree. At the base of the tree where the roots are, there'll be a hole, which we've seen a million times in the woods, right? That's where they enter into the other dimension. It's not a dimension. Well, I mean, it is, but she says they go underground. And she said, how many times have you watched a Sasquatch disappear behind a tree? Well, not me personally, and it just disappears. And so she said she truly believes that there could be something to that.
Well, good. That's a little corroborated there, because I interviewed a firefighter who was in the Sierras, and he witnessed a Bigfoot, but he's also witnessed a UFO. Same time, daytime, and he's seen it partially come out from behind his tree. He said behind the tree, but I only seen part of it at first. Then all of a sudden I seen all of it, and it walked away. But he said the thing was huge. It had at least a 4 foot wide shoulder.
Yes.
And he said, I said, well, how big was the tree it came from behind? So that's strange. It's only 2 foot around the tree. So, and I know a couple of researchers that swear up and down they energize in trees, because it takes energy to do what they do.
Right. To move that much mass so quickly and so quietly.
Oh, what I saw was inhuman when it moved. It just very fast.
I had a researcher on recently, and he said that this thing, how quickly it moved, he said it's like it floated. He said it's just inhumanly fast, preternatural.
Yeah, you think it'd be like that going through. No,
yeah, it wouldn't really leave a track. He did find scrapes, like impression scrapes in the gravel, but there was no there were no like real impressions. It was like scrapes where she had kind of hit the ground and then kept going, but it wasn't, like if I were to step on it and run, it would be a divot, and it wasn't that. It was just a scrape. So I think it's interesting. And again, you just have to have an open mind about it. And so basically the whole sum of this entire interview is a higher mindset or an open mindset is going to win this game. Small-mindedness is
I think that's what the Mayan calendar was all about. 2012 was the age of enlightenment. We're coming into that age, and we're in it now. And I think that's why more and more people are coming out, like I am, and like you are, with this open-mindedness, because we got to understand that we may not be head of the food chain on this planet for long if we're not sort of taking care of it. Why they don't interfere with us, I don't think they're supposed to. We're supposed to respond to our issues on our own terms, and that's why it's important to respond to everything in a positive nature, no matter what you're challenged with. A lot of us are challenged with a lot of things and a lot of negative things. And I think it's important to respond to those properly, and again, compassion and love, and that's what the old masters of old have taught.
Yes. And if we prove today that Bigfoot's real, we're not. Me personally, I would not want to be a Bigfoot and be proven to be real in the current day and age, because what we prove to be real, we then try to control, and it loses. It loses everything that it had. It will lose its environment. It will lose its freedom. It will lose what essentially makes it what it is. So whatever we study, we also change, right? That's the same thing for Bigfoot. We would try to control it.
That's why they don't come out.
Exactly.
Why would you want to come out?
I tell people all the time, they're like, well, why do you think Bigfoot, why do you think they're so smart? I don't understand why you think that. And I'm like, because they're smart enough to stay away from us. They're pretty damn smart. They're very sentient beings, very elusive. And I said, their main goal is to not be around us. They may interact with us, or they may, check up on us, but that's them learning from us. Yeah, they do toy. They test, they push the boundaries, and they test things, and they're constantly learning from us. And
well, they're learning what we're about, I think.
For their own protection, to stay elusive. I think that's what I try to tell people, is they can always, every single time they view mankind, they are picking up ways to continue to stay elusive. That's how they've adapted through all of this, because you hear all these stories about the wild man, the hairy man, from Native Americans. Native Americans used to have so much more interaction with Bigfoot. But then white man came over with their guns, and all of a sudden Bigfoot just disappeared. They're like, no, we don't want no part of that. But over the years, we have advanced our technology, our guns, actual technology, audio, recording devices, and you'll notice that Bigfoot's become more and more elusive because they have to survive when all of us have cameras, because they know what a gun is, they know what a recording device is, and that it's going to harm their being able to keep surviving, right?
They don't want to be exposed.
Right. A trail cam, if they are found out by if they're captured by any of these devices, they know that their existence is threatened. And to me, I think
most of them are blurry, right?
They're blurry, I think that a Bigfoot's main goal is just their existence. They are the ultimate survivors. And because they are that way, and they have survived this long because they are so elusive. And stay away from us.
Oh.
Very smart. Yeah. I found that out in the last year with COVID, that mankind is someone that if I could go live in the woods and get away from them, I probably would.
Probably can. The thing is, we culturized so much and got used to all these good stuff that we think is good anyway.
That's true.
We're not like we should be, I think. We're not the humans that we were originally created to be. And I think we just have to learn to evolve better, and to the way to get out of this. We're going to change forms and get out of it one way or the other. But what happens after that's what's important, I think.
I think so. I'd love to see where we are.
It's interesting to think about it. To me, it is.
Yeah.
I'm heading for Alaska next week on a filming production up there, and I come back and I go to Michigan, for a conference back there in May the 15th, and so I got a few things lined out, which is exciting, and it's all Bigfoot related stuff,
So that'll be good. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I can't wait to see what you continue to bring us, and I wanted to thank you for not being afraid to bring us the truth, or your truth. Not being I really appreciate that you have taken a scientific aspect to this. I just appreciate everything you're doing, because I know it's not widely accepted, stuff like that, but I do appreciate that you are doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you allowing me to express myself on your program.
Absolutely. Like I said, I give people a platform to do what their truth is, to express their truth, because if we keep putting out what's accepted, we're not going to get anywhere. We have to think outside the box. So
true.
So true.
Well, that's the thing with classical science. It's in a parameters of discipline, which requires it to have certain guidelines to meet. And you get into quantum science, it's unpredictable, and they can't. I asked professors that I'm acquainted with, what do you think about quantum science? They don't even talk to us about that. Oh. They're not trained in that. It is science, but they're not looking at that has got anything to do with this Bigfoot phenomenon. And I truly think it does, because they've not experienced anything like I have. And when you experience it yourself, you become a believer. Something else going on here. What can explain that? Oh, it's a woo-woo, or well, bless me, I don't care.
Yeah. No, that's the truth. That's the truth. Science is what you can control, and that's not realistic. That's not realistic. You can't control energy. You can't control a lot of what's going on.
Science, if they think everything's measurable and predictable, like how far it is to the end of the universe.
Right.
I pose that question, and you can't even fathom that. There's no way it could be an end. So how does that work?
Right.
It's hard to comprehend. If you can get that far, and I've been thinking that since I was a little boy, what's out there? What's the wall? Is there a wall out there somewhere? What's on this other wall?
Right.
It doesn't work. You can't comprehend it. So you get into quantum physics, you have to understand that part right there. There's things you just can't understand. You have to just conceive it. Now, mathematically, quantum physics is accurate, and it's a science. So
that's true.
I still encourage all researchers to delve into it. Don't close your mind to it. Or
at least pick up your book and skim it to get, kind of learn about it.
You can get Quantum Physics 101, That's what I did. Well, it wasn't 101. A couple of professors wrote it in Santa Cruz, when my granddaughter graduated. And it's something worth looking into.
Expand your knowledge, because you never know.
Yeah, people tell me they out in the forest, they hear their dog's name being called, yet their dog's not around. It's at home. Well, these things have the vocal mechanism to create just about any sound they want to create.
Yes.
We got some strange sounds up there we couldn't understand. I just didn't know, and couldn't understand how you could hear something out there and not see it. We weren't looking for cloaking Bigfoots or nothing like that.
Right. Yeah.
We weren't, and we didn't even think about it then. It's got to be an ape out there running around the woods, and it's more than that. A lot more than at least what we were dealing with was. Again, they're not all the same, in my opinion. I want to stress that because it really has a foundation to go by now, because different species and different types of aliens have been on this planet and done different things to the genome of different species. So, there's things going on, and I think we're going to be ready for a big surprise one of these days. People have to open their minds whether they want to or not.
I think so. I think my personal opinion, and this is not founded on any academic or scientific basis, is that they said UFOs are real, right? They recently come out with it. I feel like they're warming us up to drop some knowledge on us. It's like UFOs were not real for so long, and then all of a sudden, yep, they're real. And it was in the middle of the pandemic, and nobody even cared. I feel like they're just warming us up for something big.
Yeah, it's since 47, the Roswell. By the way, Roswell happened after the atomic bomb went off, I think. A couple of UFOs collided. One was both in New Mexico, but one they call it Roswell, and one of the entities survived, and it's all been documented now. I mean, it's all out in the open, and if people want to believe it was a weather broom still, well, okay, believe that, but that's not the way it was.
Humans believe whatever is easiest for their minds to.
Well, some people, and I know some of these people personally, who just want to stay within, this is my life, I'm going to enjoy it, just leave that woo-woo stuff out of it,
Right.
That's laziness, but it's also okay for them if they want to be that way.
Right.
You and me can't be that way.
No, because we want to find the truth. We want to know why. We want to know what and why. And to solve this puzzle, you're going to have to, open your mind up and find the center pieces.
Before it's too late, let me mention my website.
Absolutely.
Unless you got it, ronmorehead.com, Morehead. And you can get my books or my CDs. They're all downloadable too, or you can get the hard ones through Amazon.
Yep.
So.
As well as, so Ron has, your website's great. He has his blog on there, and he has all of his different research projects and everything broken down into pieces. So you can actually go study each one that he's done. Like the Lovelock Cave, I'll actually be going to that area this summer. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I've been there 4 times. It's a grub trail from South America all the way up to North America. And the Paiutes and their stories.
So we're pretty excited about that. But you have your blog on there, and so just the opinions and thoughts you give. So if you guys really enjoyed this episode, you can go look at his website, and he has a lot of breakdowns of those thoughts that he shares on there, as well as research. And again, you can buy his projects and his works there. So definitely go check it out. It's a good read. I was reading up on it, and I was just like quoting you. I was writing down quotes. I was like, this is good stuff. So I love people who are not afraid to speak their truth. I think that's, if I've learned anything from my journey through COVID and becoming my authentic self, it is I really enjoy people who are not afraid to be themselves and speak their truth. I think that is, it takes strength. And I want to thank you for doing that today. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you again for having me on.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you again. And you guys drop some comments down below and let me know what you think of this episode.